Welcome back to Road of Echoes. Today, in Episode 7, Moonville Tunnel, Echoes of a Lost Community, we travel into the heart of Brown County to visit the vanished township of Moonville. We will be investigating the origin of the paranormal lore surrounding Moonville. If you're watching on YouTube or TikTok, please like, subscribe, follow, and share this episode. Your support helps Road of Echoes grow and keeps these stories alive. Let's begin. Moonville was established in the mid-1800s, born from the expansion of the Marietta and Cincinnati Railroad, which began construction in 1851 and was completed in 1857. The town's name is believed to come either from a local store owner named Mr. Moon, or from the way the full moon illuminated the valley at night. What we do know is that Samuel Coe, a local landowner, offered the railroad right-of-way through his property, a decision that made Moonville possible. But the railroad that created Moonville also made it dangerous. Let's begin. At its peak, Moonville had 60 to 100 residents, most of them coal miners, clay workers, timber cutters, and railroad laborers. Families lived in a cluster of 8 to 12 small homes, with a one-room schoolhouse, a tiny general store, and a small cemetery tucked into the hills. Children walked the tracks to school. Miners walked them to work, and brakemen walked them at night, lanterns swinging in the dark. But the railroad that created Moonville also made it dangerous. The Moonville corridor was built fast, cheaply, and through extremely difficult terrain. Engineers carved the line through unstable shale hills, forcing the track into a steep grade, a blind curve, and a narrow right-of-way squeezed between cliffs and drop-offs. The tunnel itself was hand-cut using picks, shovels, and black powder blasting, then lined with locally fired brick. Telegraph lines were unreliable, and dispatch orders often arrived late. On a single-track railroad, that meant trains could be on the same line without knowing it, a flaw that would later contribute to several deadly collisions. Railroad engineers surveyed the hills between Zaleski, Hope Furnace, and the Raccoon Creek Valley. The terrain was steep, uneven, and heavily forested, but it offered the shortest path between coal, clay, and timber sources. Workers, mostly immigrant laborers and miners, carved the railbed using picks, shovels, and black powder blasting. The right-of-way was extremely narrow, squeezed between hills and cliffs. The Moonville Tunnel was hand-cut through unstable shale. Brick was fired locally, likely near Hope Furnace, and used to line the interior. By late 1856, trains were running through Moonville. For the people of Moonville, the railroad wasn't just transportation. It was the main path through the valley. Children walked the tracks every morning on their way to the one-room schoolhouse, balancing on the rails or hopping ties as they crossed the narrow right-of-way. Miners used the tracks before dawn and after dark, heading to and from the coal banks with lanterns swinging at their sides. Railroad workers walked the line constantly, checking switches, inspecting cars, or simply using the tracks as the quickest route home. The corridor was dimly lit, hemmed in by cliffs and forest, and the tunnel itself was pitch black. With no proper footpath and no safe clearance, anyone walking the tracks, children, miners, laborers, shared the same narrow space with locomotives. It was a daily routine built on risk, and one misstep could be fatal. The dangers of the Moonville corridor weren't theoretical. They played out in real accidents, each one shaped by the engineering flaws of the line. Newspapers from the era described not only worker fatalities, but everyday injuries near depots and trackside communities, including Carrie Reitzel, a young girl who bit off part of her tongue during a railroad fright, and a separate accident near Marshville reported in July 1873. The corridor was dangerous for anyone who lived near it, not just the men who worked on it. Runaway cars on the grade. The steep incline leading into the tunnel made runaway cars a constant threat. Freight sections, often uncoupled on the slope, rolling downhill faster than brakemen could respond. With no sidings and no escape routes, Workers were forced to run alongside moving cars, lanterns swinging as they tried to set manual brakes between the couplers. Blind curve collisions. The sharp curve before the tunnel created a deadly blind spot. Two trains could be on the same track without seeing each other until seconds before impact. Telegraph failures made the problem worse. Freight trains sometimes ran without proper orders, directly contributing to collisions like the one that killed brakeman Michael Davitt. On July 14, 1873, Davitt was crushed between the passenger and baggage cars during a collision just east of Moonville. Moonville Tunnel was carved through shale, a rock that fractures easily when exposed to moisture and vibration. The tunnel leaked constantly, shedding flakes of stone from its ceiling and walls. Freeze-thaw cycles cracked the shale apart in winter, causing sudden rockfalls in spring. Train vibration loosened debris, scattering it across the tracks and endangering anyone inside. Fatal falls and track walker deaths. Workers walking the tracks at night faced steep embankments, uneven footing, and sudden drops. Washington Reifsnyder died after falling 37 feet while trying to signal an engineer during a collision. Others slipped on wet shale, mud, or loose ballast, hazards made worse by the tunnel's constant moisture. Moonville was remote, and many workers lived hard lives. David Baldy Keeton, a local man known for drinking and fighting, died after leaving the tavern above the tunnel. He was struck by a train while walking home along the tracks sometime between 1870 and 1890. His death became part of Moonville's ghost lore, a reminder that human frailty mixed with engineering danger often led to tragedy. Telegraph lines were unreliable. Freight sections often ran late or without proper orders, directly contributing to collisions. In 1864, a telegraph delay contributed to a catastrophic collision in Vinton County that killed 14 Union soldiers, one of the deadliest accidents on the line, and a warning of how dangerous miscommunication could be on single-track railroads. Moonville's ghost lore isn't just folklore. It's the echo of real people, real accidents, and a railroad built through danger. Every story here is tied to the engineering flaws of the corridor, the blind curve, the steep grade, the rockfall hazards, and the narrow right-of-way that left workers nowhere to escape. Moonville is gone, but the tunnel still remembers. The most famous spirit is the lantern ghost, said to appear on foggy or rainy nights. Witnesses describe a man walking the tracks with a lantern, swinging it slowly, as if searching for something. Some say he's looking for the train that killed him. Others say he's still trying to finish the job he died doing. Davitt was a brakeman, a dangerous role that required climbing between moving cars to apply handbrakes. When two trains collided near Moonville, Davitt was crushed between the passenger and baggage cars. His death was violent, sudden, and tied directly to the blind curve and telegraph failures of the corridor. People still report seeing his lantern near the tunnel entrance. One of Moonville's most infamous deaths was David Baldy Keeton, who left the tavern above the tunnel after a fight and was found dead on the tracks the next morning. His death became the origin of the pebble-throwing ghost said to haunt the tunnel entrance. Hikers say they've felt pebbles thrown at them near the tunnel or seen a shadow limping along the right-of-way. Locals used to say, "If you feel something hit your back, Baldy's out tonight." Some visitors describe seeing a woman standing on the rails inside the tunnel. She appears only for a moment, pale, still, silent, then vanishes. Her identity is unknown, but newspapers recorded several women injured or killed along the corridor over the decades, often while walking home along the tracks. Moonville Tunnel amplifies sound in strange ways. Visitors report footsteps behind them, whispers in the dark, and sudden cold spots that move through the tunnel like someone passing by. Some hear a lantern clinking against a metal coupler. Others hear a single, distant footstep. Then nothing. Moonville didn't vanish all at once. It faded slowly, the way isolated towns often do when the industries that built them begin to fail. By the early 1900s, the mines closed. The iron furnaces cooled. The railroad, once the town's lifeline, was rerouted to more stable terrain. The school closed when the last families left. Houses collapsed into themselves. The depot rotted away. The schoolhouse disappeared into undergrowth. The forest reclaimed everything, except the tunnel. For decades, the Moonville Tunnel stood alone in the woods, a brick-lined reminder of a community erased. Hikers found it by accident. Teenagers carved initials into its walls. Railroad historians photographed it as a relic of the Marietta and Cincinnati line. Paranormal groups began visiting after stories of lantern lights and footsteps spread through Vinton County. Today, the tunnel is part of the Zaleski State Forest Rail Trail, restored and maintained as a historical landmark. Thousands of hikers pass through it every year. Historians walk the corridor with old maps in hand. Paranormal investigators set up EMF meters in the darkness. And every October, the Moonville Ghost Walk brings crowds from across Ohio. Lanterns glowing again, not from brakemen signaling trains, but from people searching for echoes of the past. Moonville is gone, but the tunnel remains, and it remembers. Moonville was small, isolated, and dangerous, but it left behind a story larger than itself, a story of engineering, tragedy, and the echoes that linger in places where history refuses to fade. If you're watching on YouTube or TikTok, please like, subscribe, follow, and share this episode. Your support helps Road of Echoes grow and keeps these stories alive.